right. Anyway, I'm Restless Corpse.
I'm still Providence, and this is still Virtual Bromance Live, Episode 3. This time, it's personal.
Right. And we're gonna talk about some shit because that's what we do.
Yeah. I think we have a very. I like to sound like a talk show host or like a night show, a late show host, and be like, we have a very very exciting show for you today.
I just want to turn this down. Get some Triforce.
We we have a very exciting show for you today. We're going to talk about things that are going to blow your freaking mind.
That's right.
There's going to be brains all over the place. No, we're gonna try that. We're gonna talk about some games that we've been playing, like we like to do. We're gonna talk about what was the other relevant thing? Like I know that we were talking about the Legacy of Kain thing. What was the thing in between there? There was the games we were playing.
Right.
There's a new segment that we're gonna be doing occasionally that covers given the chance to continue an abandoned series of games or reboot the an abandoned series of games. What would we like to see in said new game?
Right.
So we'll be talking about Legacy of Kain, the series, and what we'd like to do with it if it ever happens again. And then we're going to be doing our top 5, which we like to do as the closing element of the show. So obviously, you'll have to wait for that a little bit.
He's not lying.
So where do you want to go from here?
Well, I suppose since I usually make you start with the what you've been playing thing, I'll do it. I've actually been playing a shit ton of Terraria, and I actually bought the game a long time ago. And before that, when I first bought it, it was like the first build. There really wasn't a whole lot to do. There were 3 bosses, a bunch of gear that you could grab and everything like that. But I quit playing before the 1.1 update came out. And apparently the 1.1 update added a whole bunch of crap. A hard mode. There's 8 bosses now, a couple mini bosses. Just ridiculous amount of new gear, a couple more NPCs, things like that. So I've been playing through, trying to get through some of that content, and you and I were playing a little bit as well, which we're going to have some video of that pretty soon.
Me? Yeah, with Jeff and Jorge, the incredible adventures of Jeff and Jorge.
Jeff and Jorge at the Silver Lake Lounge, building the VirtualBromance HQ. But I've been playing, I started a different character on a different world, and I was just
Wait, what's his name?
His name is Corpse.
Oh,
nothing special.
It's not as good as Jeff or Jorge.
But he is building his summer home on Cupcake Mountain.
What? Is he going to become the wizard of Cupcake Mountain, perchance?
We'll see. I mean, there is a wizard. Vanity set.
In Castle Kling Klang, will he dwell by chance?
That's the whole point. Yeah.
Okay.
And I've gotten right up to the part where I would be fighting the first boss that they added to start hard mode. And
the wall of flesh.
So I'm working on that. And then in a month or so, they're going to be coming out with even more shit, which is actually how I kind of thought about playing again, was the 1.2 update. They're adding ridiculous amounts of stuff, mounts, which I think would be pretty cool.
Yeah, unicorns, you said, right?
It's not necessarily a unicorn. It's one of the fake unicorns where it's just a head with a stick.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah, that's the mount. And they're doing a lot of stuff with the blocks, where now you'll be able to make half blocks and slanted blocks. They're changing the way you run so that if you're running if you run up to something that's only a block high, you'll actually just step up it instead of having to jump, which is going to make things go a lot quicker. And I think that's pretty cool.
Will you step up to the streets by chance?
Yeah, you will also step up 3D.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
wow, that's pretty exciting.
So
it's way bigger than I thought it was.
They're going to have realistic weather, not realistic, but weather effects. I watched a video where there was rain, and the rain would actually pool up on the ground, and then it switched over to lava rain, which I hope they're not putting into it because that would kill everything. But it looks really cool. They're adding a thing where you can paint the blocks, so after you build a house or like a structure or whatever, you can paint it whatever color you want, stuff like that. And I know that sounds kind of like but it's cool for fans of Terraria who want to customize their shit, because it's really all it's about. It's just like Minecraft but 2D, and Minecraft has a ridiculously large following, so I'm pretty excited about it. It should be coming out. Everything on the internet says late June, early July, so we'll see. The guy that actually that made the game, Red Digit, just kind of fell off the face of the earth, and they thought that the game wasn't going to get any more updates, but he came back with this big update.
So clearly, when he fell off the face of the earth, he was working on said update.
Well, no, he said he had some personal issues, but I think that after those were done, he worked on a big update to come back and be like, "Hey, sorry, I disappeared." I don't know, maybe. But yeah, that's what I've been playing the shit out of. I actually played that right up to the time we were supposed to broadcast. So.
Which is the same thing that I did with what I've been playing.
Why don't you tell us about it?
I think I will. So what the title of the game is ridiculously long, and I want to make sure I don't say it wrong here. It's The Incredible Adventures of Van Helsing is what I actually have been playing. I picked it up because it was
sale.
Yeah, it's on sale for like $1 off or something. It just came out last week, I think. It's fairly new. You can get it on. I got it on Steam.
Sale, but, yeah.
Right. I got it on Steam. Apparently, it's on Xbox Live as well as an arcade game, though I don't really see how
it out
would
yet?
be enjoyed. For Xbox Live?
Yeah, because I read a review about it, and they said that like one of the reasons you only have 2 attacks is because it was going to be ported to console.
I'm not sure. I haven't checked, honestly. I just when I was talking with Gemma about it, she mentioned that it was also going to be or was on Xbox Live.
Right.
And then I would assume PlayStation Network as well. But I did a lot of screen sharing while I was playing, while I was talking to her, and we discussed and absolutely 100% agreed that it looks and plays almost exactly like Diablo 3, though she feels like some of the stuff seems more Diablo 2-ish.
Right. Which is largely the better, like, more revered game anyway. So that's if they were going to take, like, some cues from one of them, 2 would probably be the way to go.
Right. Well, I mean, I've never been a Diablo guy. I don't want to get you all that, so we're just going to move on past me saying that. So
I played the shit out of Diablo 3.
Right. But so you play as the son of the legendary Van Helsing, not the actual Van Helsing that, fought Dracula and whatnot.
Right.
And you have an NPC that is a ghost that she was saved from hell by your father and has since been, maybe it wasn't your father, it was by an ancestor, whatever, has since been like soulbound to the Van Helsing family line. So she straight kicks it with you like your homie and like wrecks shit for you and, pisses and moans a lot about how she doesn't have any health potions and talks like Borat.
Before you continue, to reiterate what he just said, leading up to the show here, I was listening to him play, and all he was doing was saying shit like, "Yes, I know you need a health potion. Quit bitching at me." Shit like that.
And you level up your character with skill trees and different special attacks and stuff. You also level up your NPC support character separately with her own skill trees and abilities, but you share perks, I believe it is. So, like, the third perk I took actually enhanced her stats as a ghost. It changed her to Wraith or something like that. It changed the title, but it gives you like a bunch of extra points to a lot in her skill trees and her physical stats on her character sheet, which is actually what they call it in the game. but it's top down, well, three-quarters view, third person. I don't see how it would be anything other than infuriatingly annoying on a console, because it's really like point at the guy you want to attack, click on him a bunch of times, and he runs over there, or he shoots him, or whatever.
Right.
Though I wonder if it would play more actiony and less like command prompt. Maybe it would play more like Warhammer, the Warhammer game we played on Xbox Live. What was that called?
Kill Team.
Yeah, Kill Team.
Yeah. Well, it's not a twin stick game, so I don't.
Oh
think
yeah, I
so.
suppose. No, it's not a twin
Unless
stick.
they're porting
game,
it as a twin stick game,
which would be weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of achievements. It looks like there's 96 achievements on Steam. I don't know what they'll put into the port, but huge inventory system. Really, really like deep layers of inventory. I'm only like level 13 or 14, I think, right now, and I every time I go out into new areas, I'm constantly. They do have a fast travel back to like the whatever town you've set up base in, so you can.
Right.
Fill up your inventory and then fast travel back and sell off all the shit to free it all up. I got
like a portal, like Diablo has the home spell or the home portal that.
It's essentially
when it takes you back to your home, but it leaves the portal open, and then when you take it back into the dungeon, it goes away.
No, it doesn't leave it open. You have to walk back in. But there are like teleport locations in all of the areas you go to. So you can take that, you use the spell to go back to the town you're in, but then you have to grab like there's a teleport like rune circle in the middle of the town, and you go to that, and you can take it to where any of the areas you've been to that have one.
Right.
So it's not like you're doing a lot of excessive rehashing, running through empty areas. It doesn't seem like the respawn rate on most of the enemies. As far as I know, they don't even respawn at all after you've cleared an area, which would be weird. If they do, it's a pretty delayed respawn time.
No, what the review that I read said that you clear an area, it's cleared for the rest of the game. There's no loot grinding or anything. But apparently enough loot drops that you don't have to. I don't know, that's just what they said. But.
Yeah, there's a shitload of loot drops all the time. There hasn't been a whole lot of like in-depth strategy to it as yet. It's very much like just run in and kill everything and gather up all the shit and fucking equip everything that you think is cool, and then move on to fighting the boss. I am really curious to. I gifted you a copy before we started the show, but I am curious to see how the multiplayer pans out. I've read a bunch about how it's been fairly buggy. They just put out an update for the game, a pretty hefty update today for the game that addressed mostly multiplayer issues. I haven't read any specific information as to what the issues were. I think there were some matchmaking problems in the beginning, and I would assume that if there were matchmaking problems in the beginning, there were also probably people being dropped out of games and stuff like that issues. They did say to make sure that you start your multiplayer game with a new character rather than transferring in a campaign character, because there are some problems with right now, at least, where they've had some rare cases where your multiplayer game data gets erased.
Okay.
So even though I have like that level 13, 14 character, if we're going to play a little bit tonight and stream it or whatever, I'll start with a fresh one and we'll move through that way.
Now, I'm curious when it comes to the co-op, since you play as an actual like character, like a named character, how does co-op work?
I'm not sure. I haven't done it yet.
Are there going to be several of the same person running around on screen?
That would be interesting. At first I thought that they were that it was going to be, because in the Steam store page it listed campaign and co-op. So I figured, maybe the second player plays as the ghost if you're playing co-op. But then as I looked further into it, it turns out that it's like a 4-player multiplayer co-op, much like the Diablo multiplayer is.
Right.
So I'm not real sure. Like I said, nobody else on my friends list had the game until I gifted it to you. So.
Right. Well, yeah, we'll play it some tonight and figure that out.
I mean, I think it could be fun. Whatever. Fighting mobs and mobs of stuff.
It got a pretty alright review.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I read a couple of them last night when we were first talking about it. So, yeah, I'm kind of excited to play it. I'm glad that you grabbed it and passed it to your bro.
Well, someday I may call upon you for a favor.
All right.
It's not the first time I've passed you a game because I felt like being a nice guy.
That's true. All right. So, is there? Anything else?
And I was while we were going through these things, I thought of the fact that we should probably talk about the fact that we both started our PC Borderlands 2 like big party game with the SMS thing on Friday nights.
Right, which is kind of an important thing for us because we don't generally play FPS on PC.
Right. And I started a Psycho, and you're playing
Gunzerker.
A Gunzerker. And I think that we should talk a little bit about some of the differences that we've encountered in the game so far. I mean, I know there were a lot of things that you liked a lot better about it. So why don't you go ahead, man? Talk about that.
Well, I mean, the first thing that I have to say about it, and everybody that plays PC is just going to be like, well, yeah, of course. But the mouse and keyboard on console, I don't really use the sniper rifles a whole lot. But on the PC, that's like my main weapon is the sniper rifle. It's just the accuracy and stuff with a mouse is so much better. Which is funny because my accuracy with everything else is horrible. Like if using the pistols or an assault rifle at leading targets is just weird for me. I have to get used to it. I actually do have some gameplay of Borderlands 2 recorded for the next episode of A Console Gamer in PC Land. I just haven't gotten around to like adding commentary and putting it up yet. The last month and a half or at least a month has just been filled with us just doing nothing but playing games and streaming things. So editing video.
Yeah, we still need to get the other half of the Colonial Marines videos uploaded too.
I have them all recorded. I just have to edit the face cam stuff into it and then upload them.
Because man, that episode, the Raven, that video is so amazing.
Yeah.
Now, what about this the adjustable perspective thing in the PC version?
Oh right, the field of view. I'm not sure what the field of view is on the console games. I know it's fixed; you can't change it. But one of the first things I did when I was dicking around in the options the first time I played the game was just kick the field of view up to max, which I believe is 110. And for a while, it kind of makes you disoriented.
It made me sick. I needed to stop it.
You kind of start to get a little queasy, but you get used to it, and then it just makes the game so much easier for me. You can see so much more on the screen. You don't have to worry about getting shot from off screen, stuff like that. So it's real important for me.
I think it was very interesting. Like I said, I did a little bit. It gives you definitely that fisheye feel. It also sort of does that thing that I had always said that the earlier Unreal Engine games all had, which it made you feel like you were running really fast, but only 6 inches tall. Like the floor seemed really close to you, and you didn't move as if you were on feet. You sort of hovered over everything, and it had a lot more of that really everything flying in your face, like it's the Millennium Falcon jumping to light speed. Which I think was sort of what made it more difficult for me to play that way.
So did you change it back?
Yeah, I think I dropped. You can put it up to 110. I think I put it the first notch or two above. It's not one it's not one per notch or whatever, but I think it's the first increment or two up from 100 is what I switched it to. Because at 110, it was just too much. It really was. It was affecting my ability to really understand. And maybe that's because I've just played so many copious hours of Borderlands 2 that my brain is just too adjusted to the way that it normally looks.
Right.
I don't know. But we played for 4 hours, right? I mean, we hammered out a whole lot of gameplay.
I mean, we got to Sanctuary. We did the Doc Mercy quest, and then called it a night.
Yeah.
And we had technical difficulties, so some of that time was just standing around. So yeah, I mean, We played for about 4 hours.
And we got, I think I was like level 9 maybe by the time we were done.
Right, something like that.
Though I will say that in gameplay, being in a game where Krieg and Salvador are both running around,
Right.
the shit that gets yelled in that game is, without question, the most ridiculous voice acting dialogue ever thrown around in a game.
Yeah.
There were a number of times that I went into whatever the hell psycho character skill ability is called or whatever, where where you
something like that.
bloodlust or whatever it is, and everybody else in the game just laughed at me the whole time I was doing it because Krieg just screams and screams and screams and screams and screams the whole time it's going on.
My favorite shit that he says is some of the stuff he says when he's like reviving someone. Like you don't die today, you die every day. It's like, what? Yeah, that shit is funny.
Krieg is kind of great. I mean, I've been a Zero fan, since the game came out, but or hell, before the game came out, I was dead set to play Zero, and
it's because you were a Mordecai guy.
Yeah, and Krieg is really great. It's surprising to me because Krieg is far more similar to Brick than any other character that has been in the game.
Not as lame. Yeah.
Right. So. But skill tree wise, he's still very similar to Brick. It's weird. It's not really. I guess it works out to go from Zero to Krieg because they're both
Zero to Krieg in 60 seconds.
Fuck yeah! Well, because they're both very melee based characters, so
right.
You can still with my. Not that it matters on my PC game, but like on my Xbox game, my badass rank all transfers over, and I've put so many badass points into melee damage that it works really well.
Man, speaking of meleeing, by the way, if anybody can give me some advice on where to remap the melee key, that'd be fucking badass because V is just weird for my finger to swing down there and hit when I really need it. I always miss it.
And end up crouching in front of guys trying to offer blowjobs.
Yeah, and that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to hit them, not pleasure them.
Well,
so,
sorry.
It's like when we go back to
and then I looked at the stream and saw you say it again and laughed again.
It's like when we go back to a game that we haven't played in a really long time, and I like run up to somebody to try to melee him, and the melee button's different, and I end up like switching weapons right in front of him or something.
Happens to me when we go between Battlefield and Call of Duty all the time.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. All right. Well, so how do we want to handle this in a perfect world segment here?
Well, let's just talk about like how we came up with it and what we're talking about before we get into it.
Well, I mean, it started with we were talking about.
I mean, I think you just kind of asked me while I was bitching at people on a forum about Xbox One. Is when you.
Yeah. Well, we were talking. I think we started really talking about Legacy of Kain again, like as a. I think that we are very cyclical, and we end up talking about Legacy of Kain. Every year, at some point, we spend a week or two obsessing about Legacy of Kain.
Right.
Because we've been big fans forever.
We always end it with, except for Blood Omen 2.
Right, yeah. Which, Kain did get to wear one shoulder pad in that game, though.
Yeah.
And he got to wear a hood for a little while, too, which was pretty stylish.
Other than that, there weren't really any cool.
Yeah, but the teleport ability was pretty cool.
John.
All right. I really feel like I'm
Aliens.
reaching. Yeah, I know. The Hilden, yeah. Which when they brought him in Defiance, it wasn't as offensive. I don't know. I mean,
because it's like they decided to just forget that it ever happened.
No, when they brought in the aliens in Defiance.
Right, but I don't remember them actually like being aliens.
In Defiance, they just pretended that they were demons all along.
Yeah.
Right. So we started talking about Legacy of Kain, I think, because we were talking about voice actors, and we came back to the fact that one of the games with the best voice acting that we've ever played was the Legacy of Kain games because you had such a great voice cast. You had Simon Templeman as Kain. You had Tony J originally as Mortanius, and then later as the Elder God. And then you had Michael Bell as Raziel, and Renee Auberjonis as Yana Zodran. And I don't remember who did the voice for Vorador, but I'm sure that it was really somebody kick-ass. I'll look it up right now because I feel like it's important. But, talking about games, a game like that, and trying to discuss like how the game was so great, and then inevitably we fall into this sad discussion about how the game series has been sort of just cast aside. It's done, and there have been a couple of times over the last few years that it's been briefly discussed. Now the game was owned by Eidos, which is now, it was Square Eidos. Now it's just Square Europe, I believe.
Square bought Eidos, yeah.
So I think it's Square Europe that now owns the rights to the Legacy of Kain games. So I think like last year they made some mention of maybe doing another game, because it ended with a really great, like, all of the Soul Reaver story arc stuff got wrapped up, and Kain looked over his empire, well, what was once his empire, and realized that he had to go to war again to take control of everything all over again,
right?
With new perspective, and so, I mean, that to me was really great, and it was exciting, and I thought that it would lead to something amazing. And then, through these companies sort of closing and, being bought up by other companies, game developers and stuff like that, like, it just sort of got abandoned, got kind of lost in the shuffle. And I don't feel like, especially with Defiance, it was much of a top-tier title anymore. I think it became very much like a cult following sort of game.
Right.
Instead of becoming like the huge sales juggernaut that they wanted it to be when they did Soul Reaver and Soul Reaver 2. So I guess it could go either way for me. It could continue with another game that follows Kain. After
look, even though we're talking about reboots, it probably should, because it just feels like the story is not done.
Right, but I feel like
Kain's story isn't done anyway.
Right, but maybe enough time's gone by now that it could be looked at more as the story got fairly convoluted through the course of the games, because it seemed like they were really struggling to pull out a story. So I think that it could be rewritten in such a way that the themes of self-fulfilling prophecy and self-sacrifice versus independent free will, those themes I think could really be captured better with a rewritten and more cohesive story. So I'm gonna make the motion and say we're gonna discuss this as a reboot. I think it would be better for the game, for the franchise. It would be better for the content. It would be better for the characters, because as I know that you had mentioned, if we reboot, we get to do things like, well, for one, Tony J died, so we can't have him come back and voice the Elder God, which is really a shame because he's an amazing voice actor, and there's really nobody that I can think of that could play a villain that well. But as you had mentioned when we talked about it, if we were to do a reboot, it gives us the opportunity to have Raziel back in the storyline,
but as a vampire, as
one of the vampire lieutenants, before the fall or whatever. But we could even go back further and be starting with just Kain's story.
Well, I think it should start with just Kain, yeah. And so, while we're on it being about Kain, I think Kain should put a shirt on.
Did he have a shirt? He had armor in the first game.
He hasn't had a shirt since Soul Reaver.
Right, but he looks so badass. He hasn't had ears since then either.
Why don't we just put a paper shirt on him and call it a day? I mean, come on.
I'm not going to say no. He's got those bracers and those leather pants.
Right. Other than the lack of a shirt, I think his character model is badass. He's always looked awesome. Even in Blood Omen 2, he looked fucking badass.
Right.
Put a
So,
shirt on, man.
all right. So we want him to have a
Even
shirt.
if it's like a vest, just put a vest on or something.
Oh, a vest could be a really stylish. Those are really popular with the steampunk kids and the
Right.
hipsters.
Not saying that we want the reboot to be a steampunk reboot, though.
Though it could be. It actually could be. I feel like
that
I
kind
feel
of
like a
era,
steampunk.
I guess,
I feel like a steampunk environment could really be conducive to the feel of the story. I think that the original Blood Omen suffered from graphic limitations in the fact that it was
super old.
It basically was it was almost as if Kain was walking around Hyrule killing all of the NPCs from Zelda.
First of all, graphical limitations. Let's talk about maybe the budget, because I remember I saw the game at Walmart and was like, holy shit, this game looks awesome, and I bought it. But I had never heard anything about it before that.
Well, I mean, there was a different era, though. Games didn't get the big press that they get now.
When a new Final Fantasy came out, my friends were all talking about it. It's like, holy shit, a Final Fantasy's coming out. I remember I don't remember what the MechWarrior game was, but it came out around that time, and for PlayStation. And I heard about that months in advance and was excited to buy that. Parasite Eve, I heard about months in advance, was excited to buy that. Fucking Symphony of the Night. But this game came out of nowhere for me. Seriously, I had never heard of it. I saw it on the shelf and I was like, oh, you have to call the dude over there and he opens the door and lets you look at it. And I was like, yep, I'll take it. It looks awesome. And I brought it home and it was one of the coolest games I had ever played.
All right, so
maybe their budget was low. Maybe they had a little budget.
It was a small studio. Okay, so I think that rather than suffering with just random generic forest areas and mountain areas and then some chintzy towns, I think that setting-wise it could be the cities could be a lot bigger. We could have a lot more people in them. We could have some level of sandboxiness to the gameplay.
Speaking of that, and I know everybody bitched about this when Dragon Age 2 came out, but setting it in a one giant city would be awesome too.
Well, isn't that that's almost the way that Blood Omen 2 was, though, right?
Well, yeah, but Blood Omen 2 was there was no sandboxy aspect at all. It was completely and totally linear.
I'm going to say that I think it would be better if it went more of the Assassin's Creed was it I guess Assassin's Creed 2 route, where you have a couple of really big cities and then
with
some rural areas in between them. Yeah.
But don't get me wrong, I don't want it to be game mechanics wise anything like an Assassin's Creed game.
Right. I'm saying
sure, parkour, climbing things, that's great, but I just don't want it to. I don't want it to be Assassin's Creed : Blood Omen.
Yeah, there should be no stealth assassinating and bullshit like that. But I think that
sort of.
It should be built around that, I
guess. Right, because remember, one of the things we talked about was your blood being independent from your health.
Right.
And your blood either used to fuel your powers or on a steady decline, so that you actually have to feed every once in a while to survive. And obviously you would want to do that stealthily, but
and didn't I say that if we were going to do a steady decline, it should weaken your physical abilities, though not drop your health. So when it's at 0, you have the physical prowess of an average mortal, or less, because you're weak.
Take this, bitch.
Right. Whereas when it's at full, you have, it's the equivalent of Link being able to shoot little swords out of the Master Sword when his hearts are full.
Right.
Yeah, I totally went back to the original Legend of Zelda with that one instead of going with Link to the Past.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I think that the gameplay, setting wise, it should have more similar to Assassin's Creed 2. With more sprawling urban areas, more population involved.
And I want it to happen at night. I don't want him to be able to walk around during the day. Let's be a vampire.
Right. Okay. And then we do want customizable inventory, not let's upgrade your attacks. I want swords and axe. I want the flame sword. I want Havoc and Malice, the axes. I want all of that shit in there, and I want Simon Templeman to do the voiceover in the inventory.
Every single item.
talking about how awesome it is, talking about the legend behind it, how it was forged by the legendary Serially Sword Masters, all that shit. I
Just
want
like
all
Blood
of that
Omen.
in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is like the best thing about Blood Omen. I want that customizable inventory, and I
you
want to
would-
even go a step further than Blood Omen. And I want, when I put that goddamn Wraith armor, I don't want to look like just a flickering version of the Iron armor. I want it to
Right,
look like the
right.
fucking Wraith armor looks in the menu.
That's graphical limitations. I'm
Right.
sure that they would do that now. But that was like the most amazing thing about the first Blood Omen is even if you found a weapon you didn't want to use, like you were like, fuck it, I don't really like it, you were still excited to get it because you were going to go to your inventory screen and listen to what they had to say about it. And I thought that was fucking cool.
Absolutely. So inventory system, complex inventory system, I think is absolutely essential. And I think along with that, you get the requirement for shops and stuff. You could go with the Resident Evil 4 system of like some random dude in a trench coat who's not showing you his willy, he's showing you all the weapons he wants to sell you.
Right. So don't call the police.
Right. So steampunk-ish rather than medieval, because medieval sort of maybe steampunk-ish in the way that like Dishonored was kind of steampunk-ish.
Right. As a matter of fact, the art direction for Dishonored would be really cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
For
That'd be a really good creative team to work on that. Yeah. And do we want to go bosses like original Blood Omen, or no bosses, more plot driven like Soul Reaver 2?
I think bosses would be cool, but it would depend on the story. Like, if the story doesn't call for a boss, don't throw a random giant spider in there and call it a boss.
I suppose we could it could be tackled the same way as the original Blood Omen, and you could do things like collect a relic from each guardian of each pillar, because then you get to have Nupraptor's head again.
Right.
Which, for some reason, anytime
I knew him well.
Yeah, right. Every time that I went into the inventory menu, I said it that way on purpose. It was funny. It was Nupraptor's head was always the one that I selected by accident. So I don't know how many times I heard Simon Templeman say Nupraptor's head, because
Right.
it would just start while I was doing shit. But I suppose at least for the first game, and Soul Reaver, I think, did a really good job with the different lieutenants and their descendants and the bosses involved in that. It was a little more tactical than it was anything else. But I suppose then if we do this game like as a rebuild of Blood Omen, does that mean that the sequel would be a rebuild of Soul Reaver, or would we take it in a different direction?
That's what I'm saying. Like, I want it to be a complete reboot where like the story can be whatever the hell they want. Which I want to talk about game mechanics before we get into the story, because
we want to do further than okay. Talk about go for it with game mechanics.
Like with the combat that we were talking about. Soul Reaver has notoriously always had like a one button combat.
Yeah,
with,
one
like,
or two
jumps and dodges and shit.
It's a one or two. Yeah.
I would like to see the combat kind of fast and fluid with like not too many combos to make it like a straight up action game, but like.
Well, we talked about incorporating like the equivalent of celerity from Vampire the Masquerade, where you can enhance your speed or slow down everybody else for a certain duration of time. And
right, I want Kain to be able to use like fucking powers and not just have better armor or like more health than the average
and be able
guy.
to turn into mist and walk through some bars.
Yeah.
Or turn into a wolf and jump over a chasm.
I want because he's a fucking vampire. Maybe he can just grab those bars and rip them apart. Things like that. Just a power that would allow him to do that. But as far as combat goes, like I want it to have. I want it to be, like I said, fluid, and I want there to be combos, maybe a 2-button, even if it's just a light and a heavy attack type thing that you can string together. I don't want to just mash X all the time like you would do with the older ones. Mash X until you have to dodge and then dodge. And I want skill trees. It doesn't necessarily have to be like an RPG, but some kind of experience thing to grow your skills, and have skill trees, which would be really cool. So I want tactical combat, I guess you would call it, needing to block, needing to dodge, things like that. I know the first Blood Omen, as much as we talk about how awesome it is, really all you had to do was stand there and swing your sword until they died. Which was the coolest way to do it anyway, because then he would be like, "Fey Victus," and he only did that if you swung your sword 100 times in a row or some shit.
Say what up to Scott, man.
What's up, Scott? How you doing?
All right, I can agree with that.
And like going even further, I want like a sort of Metroid Prime style exploration, and quasi open world, but you can't get to this area until you unlock this, or so you'd have to go back. I mean, I know maybe that formula is getting a little outdated, but I still think it's fun. It's like exploring and finding things that help you get past other things.
Well, and I think that I think that brings about another interesting question, though, or another interesting point. This cannot be some stupid fucking first-person game. People need to understand
Right,
that
don't make it first person.
if you're playing a Legacy of Kain game, you need to be able to look at Kain and see how fucking awesome he is the whole time you're fucking people up with him. That means it needs to be third person, and you need to loosen that camera up a little bit so that I can pivot that camera around and admire how badass he looks wearing that armor.
And I don't want, because we want it third person, I don't want Kain taking up half my screen either. So yeah, like you said, get that camera a little bit further back. Even make it adjustable. Who cares? Whatever. As long as it doesn't have the Resident Evil 6 problem where it takes up half your fucking screen.
Which they fixed in a patch. But what's going on, Kalen? So, all right, now we're going a little bit further into more of like the thematic aspects. I think that one of the major points we talked about was, rather than having it end with a very strict choose to save everybody or choose to fuck everybody over option.
I forgot all about that. Yeah.
We want it to be, we would rather see a sum total of choices made contribute to a final outcome, and not have it be obvious until you see the final outcome.
I would go so far as to say even it's not obvious at all. And the example I gave you while we were talking about it was the Metro games. Nothing in that game while you're doing stuff has any indication as to what ending you're going to get, except for the first Metro. I mean, you could choose at the end, but like Last Light, I haven't played it in a while now because I didn't buy the game.
Did you finally return it?
Yeah. But by the time I had stopped playing it, looking through all the forums, nobody knew exactly how to get the good ending. So, and it wasn't as cut and dry. Remember, I was doing the no human kill stealth playthrough. Did that, only killed who I needed to kill, because that's what the achievement said, and I still got the bad ending. It's because I didn't do all this predetermined stuff that you don't know about. Nothing, like, it doesn't hold your hand. It doesn't. It's not a clear cut like good and evil type thing. The example I gave you was when you catch up with the dude who's got Anna, your partner, and he's using her as a human shield, and he tells you to take your mask off, and you're in this place that's got this virus, so everybody's wearing a mask, and you can either shoot him, which makes him throw, like, you don't kill him, but he'll throw her at you and then run off, or you take off your mask and start to fucking wheeze and shit and fall to your knees, and then he runs off anyway. So no matter what happens, he's going to get away. But both of my playthroughs, I didn't even think to actually take off my mask. I'd shot him both times. But it's stuff like that. It's like it's not something saying if you do this, you're going to get good morality points, and if you do this, you're going to get renegade points or whatever. To take
right. It's not a Mass Effect choice wheel where you have blue options and red options and gray options, and you sort of decide arbitrarily, like, oh, I'm going to be a good guy this time, and I'm going to pick all blue options, which is horseshit. Like, have people maybe have to put the thought into what their actions are and determine
and
if they are being
not
a
just
good guy.
one action or the other. Give them 4 or 5 different options to tackle a problem, and depending on how they do that, it'll tally it up by the end of the game and give you an ending based on what you did. I think that would be really fucking cool.
Which isn't that a little more like how Mass Effect was in the beginning, the first one?
Well, they all had the same ending, didn't they? I don't remember Mass Effect having.
Well, there were differences. Like you had different options that would appear depending on acquiring, like how you accrued Renegade or Paragon points, which you gained from actions.
Right, but that was like just some weird tally. If you did a whole bunch of Paragon stuff, you would tally up Paragon like a hidden tally.
Right, but some of those Paragon options wouldn't appear unless you had actually been performing other unlabeled Paragon actions previous.
Right, and that's not necessarily what I'm talking about. Like, let's take let's say there are 3 major points in this game leading up to the end, and each of those major points has like 4 or 5 different ways to solve it, and all of those options will be available no matter what you've done before, but it's like a hidden branching tree. Like, if you do the correct path, you're going to get this ending. Or if you do this different path, you're going to get this ending. But nothing is there telling you that that's what's going on. So by the time you get to the end, you get an ending. Maybe you think that's the only ending. And then you talk to your friend, and he's like, oh, I didn't get that ending. I got this ending. And like, oh, shit, what did you do? And you piece this shit together and get these different endings. I think it would be really cool. I mean, obviously a strategy guy would ruin that, but...
I think it would absolutely... It would suit the moral ambiguity and the... aforementioned self-fulfilling prophecy and sacrifice versus indulgence sort of themes of the game series. I think it would fit really, really well.
And I think the most important thing is what I'm trying to stress is I don't want you to be able to get to this point, save your game, do it one way, and then get your achievement or whatever, and then reload your game and do it the other way. I don't want it that way. I want there to actually be a replay value to the game. Whereas, like with the Fable games, you can get all 3 endings at the end if you just save it before you make the choice. Just like, Mass Effect 3, you could save it, and, well, I don't think you could save it that way.
Yeah, you could save it right before, like when you enter the Citadel, you can have it saved. Yeah. So you can just essentially walk through the Citadel, which is, there's like no combat in, and skip all the bullshit dialogue and make your choice and find out what the endings are.
Yeah. So, and then, okay, so, I mean, were there any other game mechanics, things you want to talk about before we moved on to, like, what I expect for the story?
No, man, roll it out. What do you expect for the story?
I want it to go back to the way, like, Blood Omen was, where you start out as like a human dude who doesn't know shit.
Who's a dick?
Yeah, and I mean, you don't have to be a dick, but that was kind of cool, because it further, like, cemented the fact that Kain is a dick. And
I mean, didn't you just like go into a bar and like be a dick to the people, and then when you left, they like killed you?
Yeah. Well, remember, you were in that game. You were murdered for a reason, and blah blah blah. It wasn't just some random dude who saw you being a dick and was like, "Fuck."
Well, but you go into the bar and you're like, "Give me a drink, dude," and they're like, "Fuck you, buddy. We're closed." And then you leave, and then they kill you.
Right. Pretty much. So I want it to be like an origin story. I mean, they did so well with Tomb Raider recently that they could make it a badass Legacy of Kain origin story.
And allow me to make myself clear. If anybody hears this and decides to make this game, if you put multiplayer anywhere near this fucking game, I will find you in your sleep and literally stick a couch up your ass.
That's not to say that co-op wouldn't be awesome, but...
well,
no multiplayer matches, like no death match. Just leave all that shit out. If you want to do anything that has to do with any kind of multiplayer, just make it a co-op.
Don't put co-op in the first game.
No, that's right.
Give me Kain and Raziel co-op in the second game.
Right. Good call.
Or Kain and Malkaya, like any of the lieutenants and Kain in the second game. Yeah, that'd be good. Be good.
And like I said, if the story doesn't dictate boss fights, then don't put boss fights in there. Don't put boss fights just for the sake of boss fights. There should be no giant crabs and no giant spiders for you to fight, because it doesn't make sense in the story.
Whoa. There's always room for a giant spider.
No, there's not. I mean, if you want to, like, it really depends on how the story plays out. Like, when I say let's talk about the story, there's things that I don't want to happen and things that I kind of want to happen, but I would rather be really surprised by an actual story.
And this is Legacy of Kain we're talking about. We do not want a Castlevania game, so don't make it so fucking difficult that you can only play it on easy.
Right.
But don't make it so easy that you can only play it on fucking impossible. You know what I'm saying, bro?
Yeah. All right. Anything else?
No.
So that's our vision for the next, like a Legacy of Kain reboot, which would be pretty cool.
You hear that, Eidos or Square Europe?
Look, if you need help, let us know.
You can reach us at the below addresses right here. We will work for shit tons of money.
Yeah, shit tons. Times 2, because, you know. All right. Anyway, we do have a top 5 for you guys. It's getting about that time.
Yeah, we're gonna. And someone had suggested a top 5 for us last week, but
yeah, that's right. See, Scott knows what we're talking about. Metric shit tons of money.
Yeah, none of that imperial shit tons of money. I want metric shit tons.
Metric or no go.
Right. Oh, someone suggested a top 5 for us last week, and well, last week was a bit filled with
awesome
with technical errors. Yeah.
By that he means it was awesome.
We sort of lost the suggestion, and we couldn't agree on what it was.
So we took the best elements of it, and we made it stronger and faster.
Or we picked a completely different thing and decided to do a top 5 on that instead.
Our top 5...
No, Kalen, because that is a top 10, not a top 5. And that is for, like...
Oh, that's a good one, though.
That's for, like, a mid-season finale of our show, bro.
Yeah, that's for a mid-season finale. We gotta leave... we gotta do that one and then, like, not do a show for a couple weeks so people are starved for more. But this week's is the... what was it? The top 5 villains in video games.
Yeah, our top 5 video game villains, which are not...
It was actually kind of easy for us because this is a topic that we follow pretty closely. Like we
do talk about it a lot because I think that we have a tendency to
think
to really
villains are cool.
Well, we really, I think more so than most people. I think we really like a well-written villain. We love a good it's like watching Game of Thrones. I love the shit out of Lena Headey playing fucking Cersei because she plays her well, and I love what's his name, Jack Gleason playing Joffrey because he plays him really well. Like, I love a well executed villain. I want a good villain. I want a villain that I believe is a fucking prick. I want a villain that I believe the characters want to fucking kill. Yeah. So, as always, the rules of our top 5 are. They're in no particular order, because when you get into the top 5 of anything, all that shit is also badass. There's no reason to say that one of those 5 things is better than the other. Right. This time we came up with 2. Wow, that's funny. I don't remember what our other honorable mention was, because when I went to type it in, I typed in the same as the first one, because he was so badass.
So you have it on there twice? Yeah. That's all right. I have actually one to add to it, which we'll get to when we get to that.
We have a couple of honorable mentions because...
and everybody's going to be mad that we didn't put it in the actual top 5, I think, but there's a reason.
But we kind of felt that the 5 that we picked were really strong. They were characters that we've consistently liked. They had the
I'm just thinking about the honorable mention that you wrote down. I know what it is, and it makes me laugh every time.
You know damn well which one it is that I wrote twice. Yeah. And I'll send you the text file if you don't believe me. No, but, okay, so the top 5 is in no particular order. And I'm sorry, people, we don't give a shit about Sephiroth. He is not anywhere near this list. He's never going to be on one of our lists because we don't think he's that cool of a character.
No.
There are far, far cooler characters. in Final Fantasy alone, much less
One
in
of
the
them
world
made our
of
top
gaming.
5, yeah.
Right. That is correct.
And
So,
I would go so far as to say he's one of the top 5 like villains in any story ever, because of just the shit that he does in that game is ridiculous.
he kills General Leo, the
He
prick.
does kill General Leo. And
All right.
if you don't wait for him, he'll kill fucking Shadow too. It's not cool.
He's a prick. All right. So, we'll save that one for last.
Yeah, if anybody doesn't know who he is by now.
So I'm gonna throw out one of my personal favorites because of this guy up here, Ridley Noman Hardiman of Zone of the Enders. Fantastic character, great voice acting. I think you hear just a couple of snippets of dialogue from him in the first game. Never see him. I think you see Jehudi, or you see Anubis at the end of the first.
Fight him at the end, and
Anubis shows up and just
or he
fucking
beats you.
wrecks you, and then the game ends. And then Zone of the Enders 2. Oh man, you go in as Dingo, you fight him a little bit, he makes jokes and interrupts you.
Wasn't Dingo in our first top 5 as the
Underrated hero? Yeah.
underrated heroes? Yeah.
Yeah. Dingo goes in, he fights him. And then they get done fighting. He's like fucking with Dingo the whole time because Anubis way outmatches Jehudi at that point in time. And then he's like, "Bro, it's cool. I missed you."
Jehudi.
He's like, "I missed you. Why don't you land that thing and we'll go and hang out for a little bit." So they get out of the ships. They get out of their orbital frames. My fault. They're walking to meet up. And he's like, "Dingo, what's the word?" And he's like, "You're a dick." And he's like, "It's cool, you're going to work for me again." And Dingo's like, "Fuck you." And he shoots him like 12 times in the chest.
Yeah. And then, makes it so that the only way he's going to survive is to be in Jehudi's cockpit, and he has to work for him.
No, he doesn't do that. Ken does that.
Oh, well.
Right.
But I mean, he has, you technically, like, if she hadn't let you go, you would have had to work for him. I mean, that's, he knows how to recruit a guy. Put it that way.
He's a dick through and through. He's completely crazy. The further he's exposed to Metatron throughout the game, he becomes more and more psychotic. He's got one of the coolest looking orbital frames ever put into a game that looks all super Egyptian with the dog head.
Right.
He's got the zero shift straight through the whole thing, which makes him fucking like flicker all over the place and be badass. He just does prickish shit other than shooting fucking Dingo 12 times in the chest. He randomly kills other characters and laughs about it. Screws over his own guys frequently. He's completely nuts. He is probably one of my favorite video game villains ever. Yeah. Noman is literally the shit. If you want to try to write a villain as good as Noman. Plus his real name is Ridley Hardiman, which is pretty fucking badass as well.
And if you agree, go ahead and like the Facebook page.
Oh man, I love Noman so much that I did in fact make a Ridley Noman Hardiman Facebook page. Yeah. Yep. I think there's 9 people on it, if that. 5, I think.
Yeah, and nothing ever gets posted on it.
Hey, I randomly.
It's cool to have it on your sidebar.
Game. I'll occasionally post a clip from Zone of the Enders 2, just for fun.
Right.
And for those that track down the origin of samples in industrial music, yes, I have sampled Noman. Yes, it's in a song that is on our EP that's released on WT2. Yes, You will be able to figure out only if you've actually played Zone of the Enders 2. Right. So yeah, David, who do you want to throw out?
I want to talk about Saren for a little bit, because Saren is a badass villain as well. And that's one of the reasons why I think the first Mass Effect was just so good. I used to say it was like, back when I played it way before you did, and when I was trying to get you to, like, because you didn't have an Xbox at the time, but I was trying to tell you how cool the game was, and just it's one of the coolest sci-fi stories I've ever seen. you know, and part of it is because like Saren is such an asshole, but he's being manipulated the entire time. So it's like, and I read the prequel book.
Yes, Kalen, he did go hipster on me because he was like, "Bro, I had an Xbox back then before you had one."
No. I'm just saying it was before you had one, so you couldn't play it. So I had to tell you about it.
Yeah.
And I just Saren is really cool. He's such an asshole, especially if you've read the prequel book. You know how much of a douche he is.
He wears a head sock. That's always a plus.
Well, and and he's a Turian, which is cool. I really I like the fact that at the end of the game you can if you, like we were talking about with the Paragon and the Renegade, you can actually make him see the error of his ways and kill himself, which doesn't even stop him. Like he kills himself and then becomes the final boss. So I think Saren really deserves to be on the top 5.
He's got a really great character design. He's because he's sort of a cyborg Turian, and
only
progressively
he's indoctrinated. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. Progressively, as his indoctrination becomes stronger and stronger, you see him fighting himself.
Right.
Through a number of scenes, rage taking over, and just completely, he's not himself. And you know that he's a great character. You can see that prior to his indoctrination.
You're eating cheese balls.
No, these are dots.
Oh, all right.
You can see that prior to his indoctrination, I'm just hanging out with a red dot in my hand. He was a super epic badass, and then he just became, he got used by a force that was too powerful for him. So to know that he was this epic badass, that he fell so far,
well,
makes the character
he was an asshole before all that happened. I mean,
but he was a badass.
But he was a badass, yeah.
So,
and,
yeah.
And he's got there's the politics, when you try to tell the council what happened, he's just like, whatever, that
hey,
kind
Kelly.
of stuff. So
I like when they say that when they do the hearing, and Shepard's like, "Oh, Saren did this and he did this and he did this," and Saren's defense is, "No, I didn't. Prove it."
right. That's what I'm saying. It's like it worked because they get all pissed off. So yeah, moving on. What's the next one?
Albert Wesker.
Wesker has been like John and I's guy ever since we've known each other.
Mm-hmm. I mean, how can you not like a guy with slick back blonde hair, mirror shades, stupid, inconsistent accent?
Right. Now remember, and I said this when we were coming up with the stuff.
A guy who incorporates in his master, a guy who incorporated into his master plan the fact that he needed to die brutally.
Right. And like I said, when we were talking about this, I don't know if you necessarily agreed with me at first, but Wesker pre-Resident Evil 5.
Which, I mean, I understand that he's a cooler character. He does more sneaky, underhanded shit. But in Resident Evil 5, he's like Neo, but not lame. Not played by Keanu Reeves. He's dodging bullets. He's wearing a leather trench coat. He's got glowy red eyes. He looks really, really badass.
And that's cool. And that's cool for the character. But I think that they took his being the bad guy a little bit too far, and he's got superpowers and shit like that, and it was cooler for me when he was just pretending to work with everyone and fucking them over, and I don't know, I think that he was cooler back then, especially in the first Resident Evil when everybody actually thinks that he's their commanding officer, so they could never even suspect that he was working with Umbrella, that kind of thing. So
plus you really got to respect a guy whose first name was Albert,
right?
Who's secretly a scientist, but is pretending to be. He's secretly a master scientist, but is pretending to be a military contractor.
Yeah,
because that implies two very advanced skill sets that don't overlap in many areas.
Right.
It's like he's got 2 PhDs, one in evil scientist and another in badass with a gun.
Yeah, he's a badass evil scientist with a gun.
Yeah. So yeah. I mean, Wesker. Oh, he's pretty good. You know, I
To the
guess
point that we were super excited to see who was going to play Wesker in the movies. And then we were disappointed because that guy is a horrible Wesker.
well, he doesn't look terrible for it. He just
I don't know, man. I did not enjoy him as Wesker at all.
yeah. I mean, I don't really want to talk about those later movies. I don't.
Right.
I think Wesker I think is another video game character that was supposed to be played by Michael Biehn all along, right?
Right.
Just like Snake was supposed to be played by Michael Biehn all along.
Right.
Because every video game developer ever has based their lead character in an action or sci-fi story off of Kyle Reese or Dwayne Hicks.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Who's next?
We're moving on to one of my personal favorites, which is Revolver Ocelot,
Yeah.
which we weren't going to do. I had suggested Liquid Snake originally, but then we realized that Liquid Snake's only in one game, because in subsequent games, Liquid Snake is Revolver Ocelot.
Yeah.
And Revolver Ocelot, I mean, he's in the original Metal Gear Solid. He was amazing. He was sneaky. He was the guy at the talking to the president after the credits.
Right, which came completely out of left field because you figured obviously you don't kill him in the boss fight. He just gets his hand cut off, but it's like, all right, cool, let's move on with the game.
Hand.
Yeah, and then at the end he's talking and you're like, holy shit, this guy's way more important than we thought.
Right. I mean, he's roughing you up in that boss battle. His boss battle is very early in the game. He gets dropped by the cyborg ninja because he loses his hand, and then he tortures the shit out of you later. And as long as you're not a shitty little kid video game player who needs a spoon, you resist the torture.
Right. Right.
And then he still fucks everybody over. And then he comes back with a loses a hand, gets a whole new arm, which was apparently Liquid Snake's arm, and proceeds to kick ass. Steals Metal Gear Ray, goes and orchestrates a bunch of shit on the big shell. Do you have to fight him? No, you don't have to fight him in the end of 2. But then you get his origin story in Metal Gear 3.
Which is one of the best video games ever made.
Because he does a lot of the hand stuff in all of Metal Gear 3. He throws himself out of the plane at the end for no reason. But, again, really kick-ass. And it's speculated that he was, in fact, the boss's son. Correct?
I don't remember that.
I think he was, actually, the boss's son. Because they talk about how she had a child delivered in the battlefield.
Oh, right.
And it's believed that was actually Ocelot.
For some reason, I thought you were referring to Big Boss, not the boss.
No, the boss.
Yeah.
And then he gets possessed by Liquid Snake, but it's all shenanigans when he becomes Liquid Ocelot.
Right.
In Metal Gear Solid 4. And he wears those pimp sunglasses and that leather trench coat.
Right.
And he slicks his hair back a lot. Still rocks the mustache, though. Never forsakes the mustache.
Yep.
And then you do that sweet shirtless fist fight with against him on the top of a what is that thing you're on top of? Is that metal arms or whatever?
Oh, we're talking about
in Metal Gear 4. It was
yeah. I don't fucking remember, dude. It's been so long.
Yeah.
And that game hasn't even. Yeah, it's not like it's been out for.
And Kalen, while Psycho Mantis is one of the coolest looking villains, and I don't think he has a face. Maybe that was just the PlayStation 1 graphics.
No, he was wearing a gas mask.
No, he took it off.
Oh,
though.
yeah. I think it was just the graphics. He was supposed to have a pale, weakened, his frail face. Like his
That guy.
body was frail.
He looked like the blank from Dick Tracy. And no, I don't mean Madonna. I mean the blank. But awesome powers. He managed to read your memory card and tell you that you'd been playing Symphony of the Night.
That's the only thing that made him cool, and that wasn't like a story thing. That was just I like how you brought up Symphony of the Night. But that I mean, that was a cool game mechanic, and that's what made his boss fight awesome. And he was a cool character, but I don't think that made him cooler than any of the other characters. Like, he was definitely cooler than Raven.
Right.
Raven
Well, and I think that we're going to always defer to Ocelot because we also have that deep affection for gunslingers.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Ocelot's a gunslinger. That's pretty badass.
Right.
Yeah, man. Not much more you can say about Ocelot. Shalashaska, kick-ass dude.
Yep. And now
the Gru commander.
And now we get to move on to the guy that we talked about at the beginning.
You can handle this guy because he's your guy.
All right, so he killed General Leo, which sucks because General Leo was awesome. He destroyed the world, and
he killed the Emperor.
He killed the Emperor, and he had a crazy psycho laugh, which sounded even more weird. He
enslaved all the Espers.
Right, he enslaved all the Espers. Had a sweet-ass floating island for his base.
He had the floating continent, and then he moved the statues and fucked up the world, and then he had that. Was it an island again, or it was a tower?
It was
all the debris from all the cities and shit that he destroyed with the fucking laser
it all came into one thing, and so we're talking about, obviously Kefka, because I think Kefka is one of the greatest villains
of Final Fantasy VI. We're talking about, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's dressed like a clown, which is pretty great. A jester.
As long as we're talking about the SNES one and not the remake on the PlayStation. Like when they remade his look and everything and made him just
no. I mean,
weird.
from and that was based on the original concept art. He looked like a clown.
No. But I'm just saying he had some new wave earrings and shit. It was all weird. I don't know. But
when I finish Final Fantasy IV Complete Collection on my PSP, I'm totally playing 6 again. It's gonna be amazing.
Yeah.
Gandhi and Civ 5. I bet. Yeah, Kefka's great. It's hard to play a Final Fantasy game without really comparing the villain to Kefka at this point. Like I said when we started this, Sephiroth will never be on the list for us. Look, you can only hang out in the groups that we've hung out in, or play games in the groups that we've played games in for so long before the idea of a dude in a trench coat with long hair and a katana is passé as shit.
Right.
So Sephiroth is never going to be the cool character. He's just another fucking goth. He's just the Crow with white hair, apparently.
Right.
It's or Sting from the WCW, or any of these other assholes that all do the same shit. Give me a character that's a little bit cooler. I think Kefka is heavily overrated. Yeah. Right. You can always win a costume contest as Sephiroth because people like two-dimensional, boring characters. Sephiroth is not that cool. His backstory is not that great. In fact,
and
Kefka,
he barely said 3 words the entire fucking game.
Kefka doesn't even have a backstory. You don't even need to know shit about him because he's so awesome as is that you don't care where he came.
All you know is after a fucking castle goes underground and he's left out in the desert, all he gives a shit about is there's some sand on his boot.
Yeah. And he makes the soldiers clean his fucking boots off.
Right.
So Kefka will always
poison some water instead of going to war, just fucking kill everyone. I mean, he's an asshole.
I mean, I would have put Golbez on the list, but it turns out that he's Cecil's brother in Final Fantasy IV, and he ends up hanging out with your main man Fusoya.
Right.
So he's not even a bad guy at the end. And Zemus,
that's one of the things. That's why some others didn't make it into the list, is because they need to be villains through the entire game.
All right, on to the honorable mentions, which I keep looking at my list and it's two of the same name. And I can tell you that one name is a character that I'm sure that nobody we hang out with is going to know other than us.
Right.
But he's the motherfucker. He's the man that we have been ruining the day we met since we met him.
Yeah.
That man is Strung from Armored Core 2.
Fucking Strung, dude.
That motherfucker.
Lured you out into the middle of a desert on top of a big ass.
Strung starts out as the guy who gives you your tutorial mission at the beginning of the game, and he's your bro. He's your support mech on a number of missions. He backs you up. He's kicking ass. He's keeping dudes from killing you. He's killing dudes for you. Shit's all badass. Strung is clutch as hell. You look over at Strung and you're like, man, this guy's like my brother. And then Strung's like, bro, come out to this desert real quick. I just need to show you this thing. And you get there, and he fucking turns on you and tries to kill you. And he brings a whole bunch of dudes with him.
And then he kills you like 9 times in a row until you find a way to cheese it by hiding at the top of the thing and firing rockets down at him.
Stupid ass Strung.
Strong.
Thought we were bros, man.
Yeah.
Pulling capers and shit.
Honorable mention to Strung. And I don't remember who the other one was. The second honorable mention. But I have to, and I didn't put this guy on the list because he's a great villain and he's funny as fuck, but I just don't think that he was as like psychotic or successful in fucking you over as the rest of them. But I think that Handsome Jack needs an honorable mention.
Sure.
Because he is a really cool character and he's funny as hell.
He's got a diamond horse called Butt Stallion, bro.
Yeah, and he is one of the coolest things about Borderlands 2. I just think that maybe it's too soon to call him one of the greatest ever.
Yeah,
yeah. Who was all of our villains were from older games.
Yeah,
because they've had Stu.
Who was the one that you mentioned from Xenogears?
Oh, it's just it was just a boss. It wasn't like I don't even think you ever get his name, but one of the characters in Xenogears is Billy, who was like an ex-priest, and he becomes he's the gunslinger of the group. His mech uses 2 guns, and he was like an ex-priest, and he quit because he was either the cardinal or the bishop of the order was caught fondling little boys, so he excommunicated him by killing him, and was on the run when you meet him. So that guy,
Kitty Fiddler.
Yeah, kitty fiddlers. Don't like them.
Kitty Fiddlers. Ugh. What are they good for?
Absolutely nothing.
Say it again.
So yeah, unless you have anything else to add, I believe that's the show.
Well, I mean, I guess we got a couple of viewers. I mean, we could see if they have any other villains they'd like to point out that they think that they'd like to see on that list.
That, and also maybe a suggestion for next week's top 5.
Yeah, both of those things. So anybody watching the show, if you've got some villains, I mean, we got Dr. Robotnik in there. That's a pretty good one. Psycho Mantis we talked about. Gandhi and Civ 5. And Scott likes Handsome Jack. But, if anybody else has some villains in mind, that's cool. Otherwise, we'd love to hear a suggestion as to what our top 5 should be next week. Kaylin, as we already said, we're saving the top 5 bromosexual moments for our mid-season finale. Worst villains. Oh, Jesus.
Worst villains. Man, that's actually a good one. But we can't probably shouldn't do that one next week. We should file that one away, though. That's a pretty good one. I mean, we could do it next week. We try to keep the top 5 a little bit more diverse than that's why we didn't do any kind of character-wise thing for week 2 after we did one for week 1.
What was our week 2 top 5?
top 5 ways to heal yourself in a game.
Oh, yeah. Worst sidekicks? O'Neill in Colonial Marines is the worst fucking sidekick in any fucking game ever.
Yeah. we could do a worst sidekicks next week.
Worst sidekicks. Oh,
Best
God.
movie to video game transfers? I don't think there are 5 of them, bro.
Other than, yeah, Butcher Bay.
Well, I mean, don't get into it just in case we want to use that one. I mean, what we'll do is we'll just take all the suggestions and we'll see which ones we can come up with a cooler top 5 for, and we'll do that next week.
All right. Well, yeah. So I think that's going to wrap it up for the for us for tonight. We're probably going to play some. I figure we could probably play a little bit of Van Helsing after we're done with this, and
yeah, I do want to check it out, and I forgot to pause it, so it's done.
Sweet. So we can play some. We're going to stream some Van Helsing multiplayer, see how that goes, and
top five suggestions.
Wow,
that is a good one.
Tropes versus women in video games.
Kelly, we can't do that because that's been talked about so much. We talked about it a lot on Digital Psychosis, like 2 weeks in a row. I mean, eventually, I think down the line we could, but maybe it's too soon. But it has been talked about a lot.
I'm just staring at the chat. Yeah, give me some more info.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we're like as we've said before, we're gonna be doing the show every Tuesday at 8:00. Jesus.
What?
Sorry, I'm reading the chat. It's a lot of money. Stupid TED Talks.
Yeah.
Man, I've been watching a lot of TED Talks. It's ridiculous. Yeah, so we do the show every Tuesday at 8:00. I think as we get further into summer, we'll start drinking while we do the show, especially once we get into July, wherein we'll be potentially. I believe it's potentially
from our love seat.
Yeah, from the navy blue leather love seat of Bromance. Yeah.
Yes. Bromantic times await.
So
okay,
that will be.
Call of Juarez. I played the first 2. I did not play the Cartel, which was the modern day one. And I thought about getting the new Call of Juarez game because it's an arcade title, right? I have like a shit ton of games that I'm playing lately, so I haven't had a chance to check it out. But I do want to check it out because I did like the first 2, even though they were kind of like under the radar games. They were pretty alright. So those are my quick thoughts.
I have not played any of them.
Stick them in your ear, bro. They're alright. They're gunslinger games.
Yeah. I was kind of looking at them, and I just haven't done it yet. I mean, I've looked at them. I haven't done the playing them yet. Damn it. But yeah, so we'll be putting this video up on YouTube tomorrow, unless there's massive audio problems with it, in which case we'll just redo the show tomorrow night.
And speaking of, if there are massive audio problems with this, I'm going to be very upset at everyone in the chat for not telling us like they did last time. Last time the audio was jacked the fuck up, and nobody in the chat said anything about it. So we had to do a second show, the Australian edition.
Yeah, there was only chunks of it that were bad, I think, right, David? Didn't
No.
you say it's sorted out, or what?
Last week?
Yeah.
No, I had the audio set up for streaming Xbox games, so I had my my audio delayed 2 seconds.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. You didn't do that this time, did you?
I hope not. I've been streaming from my PC for the last week, so I don't think it's set up that way.
Right. So, and of course we still, I guess maybe in the summer we will still do we'll occasionally do an Australian time show where we do our show at 2:30 in the morning or whatever on Wednesday night. But yeah, I think that our dream overhaul of a game segment will be fun as we do more. Any suggestions from the audience on those? Any game series that you think that we should tackle in terms of discussing things that could be changed or updated to make the game more marketable in a relaunch or a re-release or a reboot in any context? Suggestions for that will be great. Remember to follow us to like our Facebook page, follow us or subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Twitter, check out the band on Facebook. All the links are right there on the video.
And if you're really cool, you could check out the band live.
Yeah, we'll do that again sometime. I hear Kelly really likes one of the guys in the band. Maybe someday I'll set her up with the guy. But wow.
You know what? If you have Soul Calibur on the Xbox, I will totally take that challenge.
I would love to watch on this channel, Kelly, you play Soul Calibur against David on Xbox.
I'm down.
So, if you have it, we can sort that out soon. But, so yeah, if you guys just want to hang out in the chat, we're going to drop out of here real quick. We're going to fire up some Van Helsing multiplayer. We'll still be talking. We will not be running video of us, but we will still be on the voice chat. We can continue conversation there. So thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next week at 8 o'clock to continue to talk about more things. You can contact us at any of the above listed links if you have some ideas as to things you'd like to hear about or talk about on the show, or just hear us talk about, or things that you'd like to tell us we're stupid about. Or if you just want to tell David how sexy he is. Or if you'd like to tell David how much you like his lamp. Or if you love lamp. If you'd like to discuss the empty Lego boxes in the background here. Also okay. Anything you want to contact us about, we'll do this. But other than that,
anything.
Thanks for tuning in. And we will be back next Tuesday at 8 o'clock. Yep. So, good night.
Later, guys.